Fight Stories is brought to you by Absolute Nature CBD, premium 100% natural CBD oil and CBD oil products. Absolute Nature will help you with the pain and inflammation you get from rolling around on the ground, tussling. Go to www.absolutenaturecbd.com. Use the promo code Goon Squad, one word, GOONSQUAD, and you'll get an exclusive 20% off Fight Stories discount. You're listening to Fight Stories. All right, you bunch of goons. Welcome to Fight Stories. This is John Moses. Today's episode, Tyler's talking to UFC fighter Kyle the Monster Nelson. This is an interesting episode. His first fight, he was called up into the UFC 3 days before the match. So he goes through just a whirlwind of stuff in order to be able to fight, including making weight. I think he was, 20 pounds overweight 3 days before the fight was to happen. Also, just the discipline and dedication in order to be able to put yourself in that position, to be able to earn that opportunity, was admirable to say the least. So he ends up losing the fight that he has after this interview. So he is now, or was then, 0-2 going into the fight he won Saturday night. So I watched his post-fight interview, and he said, listen, I had to win this fight. It was funny because seems like a pretty shy dude, even in the interview. But after that UFC win, you could see the juices flowing. He's getting a little cocky. Basically said, "Hey man, I want to fight again before the end of the year. I got a 7-day suspension to rest, so I'm ready to go in another 2 weeks." Just a guy licking his chops for the opportunity. It's a good episode. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Feel free to reach out to Kyle on Instagram and on Twitter. Anyway, a couple housekeeping items before we get into the episode. Subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Spread the good word, spread the gospel. This thing is growing, but not fast enough. We need more Fight Stories listeners, more fights. We need more wild card stories. Although this season we've got some great wild cards coming up, man. I'm really pumped. We have a live episode of Fight Stories coming up in St. Louis with former NHL enforcers and, of course, St. Louis Blues, Darren Kimball and Cam Jansen, and we are getting a couple of other guys added onto the card. I don't want to spoil it for you. So that's big. So if you guys are in the St. Louis area and you want to be down, you want to be a part of it, then reach out. Tickets will probably be available by the end of the week, but it is November 22nd in St. Louis. Be there, be square. All right, guys, let's get into the episode.
Hey, you're listening to Fight Stories. This is your host, Tyler Morrison. My co-host, John Moses, couldn't be with us today, but we're up in Muskoka, and we have a very awesome episode ready to roll. I'm really excited, actually. We have a hometown hero. We're in Huntsville, Ontario, with UFC fighter Kyle the Monster Nelson. He's here, and we couldn't be more thrilled to have you here, man. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on.
Yeah, it's great. We just happened to linked up. You got a big fight coming up in Ottawa for UFC. It's on May 4th. This is obviously going to air after that, but it's great that we were able to link up scheduling wise. And I'm from Bracebridge, which is the town over, so two small towns right in the same area. You don't often run into people in this region there's not a lot of people that are trained professionally in the mixed martial arts world, is there right now?
No, there's a few competing around here, kind of amateur, but even at the professional level in mixed martial arts, kind of in our area in Ontario, there isn't really anyone else. And then as far as UFC, I think Canada-wide there's like 10 or 15 UFC fighters, so it's it's a kind of a smaller sport in Canada, but it's definitely growing.
Oh, absolutely. And you kind of belong to an elite company by being in that 10, 15 guys that have been to the big dance, as they say. And I think it's really a cool testament to the dedication that it takes to get there. I mean, because you see how it is very popular in Canada. The sport is huge in Canada. That's why they're having pay-per-views in Ottawa and stuff like that. So to be one of the first, 20 guys to get there, that's huge for you, I think, and coming from a small town, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously there's been other Canadian fighters like George St. Pierre that have gone on. There was, kind of a pioneer in Carlos Newton, one of the first UFC champions. So there has definitely been some successful Canadians.
Gary Goodridge, we had Gary on. He's awesome. He's just out of Barrie, and it's so cool. I think one thing that I want to talk to you about, it may be like not as much fight related, but just from small town related. You grew up here. Did you ever move away from here for a long period of time, or did you did you stay here for the majority? Yeah, basically
when I turned 19, I moved to London, Ontario, and I trained at Adrenaline there with Sam Stout and Mark Homnick and those guys. But I think that was only for about six months or so, and then kind of ran out of money and came back home. So, I've spent my entire life in Huntsville. I do travel a lot to Stony Creek and Hamilton to kind of get some higher level mixed martial arts training, but I always come back here for 3 or 4 days of the week.
Well, that's great. And see, I grew up in Bracebridge. I lived away for a little bit, kind of established myself in my comedy career, and then I moved back up here. But I think it's like really cool for kids coming up in small towns to see people who are successful from up here. To show, it shows them that you don't have to be bound to your hometown. Like a lot of people in small towns, you're like, I can't do anything here. Well, you can. You know what I mean? Like you're fighting in the UFC, like in I guess a week's time. It's crazy. It's so cool for I think young people to have those role models in the community, and that you've proven that you can do that. You know what I mean? You can be here. You just have to be willing to make those sacrifices to kind of get there, right?
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I mean, just because you're from a small town, everything's still possible. It might take a little bit of extra work and a little more dedication, but with enough hard work and dedication, you can do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so you this week starts up crazy for you. So you were saying off the air, like, it's not a crazy training week, but it's just going to be a circus, right?
Yeah.
Tell our listeners what they can expect, or what they would expect if they were, let's say, they're in your shoes going into a UFC pay-per-view the week of. What's your week look like?
Yeah, so I start tomorrow. So I chose to drive to Ottawa. So they offered to fly me, but I was like, I'm close enough now, and if I drive, I can load my car up. I don't have to worry about checked luggage and all that stuff. So I can load up my car with anything and everything I might need. But yeah, so I drive out tomorrow to Ottawa, and then as soon as I get there, I have to check in with somebody from the UFC. And then I do like a little interview with the ring announcer. So Bruce Buffer isn't going to be at this one. It's going to be a different gentleman.
Will it be Michael Buffer?
No, I don't think so. I read the name on the itinerary, but I'm not sure who he is. But so I do an interview with him just so he gets my name and all that stuff and all my information. And
did Buffer do your last one?
Yeah.
How cool was that? Hearing Buffer announce your name.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. It's that, and then when Joe Rogan called my name when I was walking out to the ceremonial weigh-in, it's all pretty surreal, and it's exactly like you see it on TV, only you get to live through the moment.
That's so cool. And imagine being in the Buffer family household at dinner and hearing those two guys.
Yeah.
So funny, man. I think the experience, like, so your first, let's go back, let's rewind a little bit. Let's go back to your first UFC appearance, which was just recently. Like, this is kind of, it kind of came out of the blue. There was a couple of guys that were in line for the fight, and then they couldn't do it because of, I guess one was a injury and then one was a weight thing. And so then you get the call. You, at the time, have a 12-1 record. Is that what we're looking at? So you've, assembled a pretty good, very good record coming up the ladder, and you're next on the rung. And so they give you the call. What does it feel like to get that call? Did you expect it, or was it like right out of the blue?
No, like as soon as we heard the UFC was coming to Toronto, I kind of thought, this is my chance. And now I was 27 years old. If the UFC is going to bring me in, it's going to be Toronto, because that's kind of the closest to my hometown. So I figured it was kind of like a now or never moment. We took a fight in Romania November 19th, I believe it was. So it was a few weeks before UFC Toronto, but that way too I went through the full training camp and everything. And then after that, I just kept training with hopes of UFC Toronto. And then I think it was a week and a half out, John McDessie, who's a 155-pound fighter, got hurt. So I was like, well, this is it. This should be it. Everything's coming together. And then so I contacted my coach and my manager, and they were on the phones and stuff. But then we got the message back. They found someone else. They decided to go with a guy named Jesse Ronson, who I trained with a bit down in the Toronto area. And so like, well, I guess that's it. So I relaxed a little bit, took a day or two off training, ate some unhealthy food,
It's
just
disappointing. Because you see that narrow window, and it's just all those years of preparation, and you see that you personally saw that window and identified it, and then it looked like it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and after UFC Toronto, I didn't know when the UFC would be coming back to Canada, and so I kind of thought that was kind of my last hope, at least for a while. So I didn't go too crazy, but I ate a little bit and stuff, and then it was, I believe it was the Tuesday evening. I was doing a little bit of like a light bike ride, stationary bike, and I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I saw that Jesse Ronson got pulled or got cut because he was too heavy.
Did you start pedaling harder?
Well, I got on the phone right away to my manager again. I said, Jesse Ronson's out. And the first thing he says, can you make weight? The fight was at 155, and I was walking a little heavy because
you're eating McDonald's all week.
There we go. Yeah, and then so I said, it doesn't matter what it is. I'll make the weight. I'll find a way.
Perfect.
So he got a hold of Sean Shelby, and Sean Shelby was like, "Yeah, if you can be here tomorrow at the UFC hotel there in I think it was the Hilton or something in Toronto. Be here tomorrow. Hop on the scale because we need to know that you can make weight." They didn't want another scenario where somebody showed up and was too heavy to possibly make weight.
Yeah, because that's already two guys that they've missed out on. So it kind of
yeah. So. So what I did was I kept riding on the bike for a bit, and then I hopped off, threw on a sauna suit, started running around the gym because it was like 11:30 at night. So we wanted to make sure we got the weight down a little bit just to be sure that they're not going to be like, oh, you're too heavy to fight. So, I was able to sweat out a couple pounds and stuff, and then we went there in the morning and everything was good. And they said, okay, let's go. And then that's when, that circus started, which was kind of like a 2-month process crammed into like 2-3 days.
That's insanity. And when just for the weight thing, when you're fighting, you're typically fighting at 145. That was your natural weight class that you're fighting in at. But because you're training for that, you're down there while you're training. But when you come off that, you gain that pretty quick, right? You gain it up. So what would you have been when you got that call? Like, what were you sitting at? Because 155 is the next class that you're going up, that you're stepping into. Yeah, so
I was in the 170s.
Oh shit! Yeah, I'm trying to lose 15 pounds right now. I don't think I could lose it in that short of time. So it goes up that big. That's crazy how it fluctuates. I mean, you see people actors and stuff when they lose the weight for the role, like Christian Bale when he was in The Machinist, like how skinny he got. Imagine how fast he would have got back up to his weight if you're just for the listeners, like so that is an intense. When I was reading up on what happened there, I was thinking you automatically in your mind you think, oh, he's got to go from 145 and get up. And weight to 155. No, you got to go down 15 pounds to get to that weight class, which is, that's a whole other, thing.
Yeah. For some of my fights, when I fought Olympic wrestler Ainsley Robinson, I believe we were 2 or 3, I think it was 2 weeks out, and we were fighting at 145, and I was still walking around 182 pounds.
That's crazy.
So that was one of the biggest, most extreme cuts I made. And again, I was in shape. It's just I wasn't as disciplined with my diet.
Yeah.
And So I mean, I made weight. I've never missed weight, but yeah, now we're definitely a lot smarter about it, working with the sport lab and stuff. So.
If you lose weight like too fast, do you feel that it like affects you like mentally, like it's like almost like a dizzying thing, like you're not as in control of your adrenaline and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it wears on everything. Not having food, not being fueled right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, even your vision. I mean, it feels like you can't see as well.
Not sharp.
Kind of. Yeah, it wears down on everything. So it's.
So for your first UFC fight, you have to make a dramatic shift back down to 155, and then you only have a week where you're in your first ever media type circus, because Toronto UFC is a big one. Like that was a big one. So you get into that, and you're a local, it's in Canada. That would be your closest big UFC city would be Toronto. So that's like fighting in your hometown, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get thrown into this. So you go down, and it's just like, media events and the whole thing.
Yeah, so I got there on the Wednesday, I think at 11 or something. So we did the weight. They said, okay, you're good to go. So then we're like, okay, now we're in. Now it's going. So then we get stacks and stacks and stacks of UFC contracts, Zuffa contracts, Ontario Athletic Commission contracts.
Oh, yeah.
And then medical stuff. And I already had my Ontario Pro license because we were hoping to get in on the UFC card.
Mm-hmm.
But the UFC wanted an extra MRI and MRA.
Okay.
Which in Canada here takes a good chunk of time to get.
Yeah.
So we rushed around everywhere Wednesday trying to find somewhere that would do it. And then finally we're just like, we're going to drive down to Buffalo. So
yeah.
we just I can't remember. Yeah, it must have been Wednesday. We drove down to Buffalo, got there at like 8:30. They stayed open an extra half hour for us. So
some
we got
quack
there.
doctor in Buffalo.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So then we rushed down, got all that done up, and came back. So that basically killed Wednesday as far as everything. And then Thursday we started. All the UFC photos and videos. Then you have to do an interview with the broadcast team.
Plus, it's an extra travel day for you if you think about it. So you're coming down from Huntsville, which is 3 hours, 2.5. Yeah, to Toronto, and then you're going out to Buffalo from Toronto, and then back. Like that's like being in the car for a long time too. Like that's not doing yourself any favors. And obviously you need to do it, but that's the week of a fight. That's
still trying to lose weight, locked in the car for like 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then then when we got back, we had to get into the USADA stuff. So USADA is the United States Doping Association or something like that. So what they do is I have a app on my phone, and I put my whereabouts in, so they need to know where I am all the time, so they can randomly show up and drug test you.
That's crazy.
And then we had to go over all the supplements I've taken, like any type of protein or anything I've taken in the last year, all kinds of, and then figure out the rest of the rules as far as what's legal in competition, what's legal out of competition, stuff like that. And then Thursday we get into all the videos and stuff, some interviews with the broadcast team. And then we got to start the weight cut, because we got to do some of the weight cut Thursday night, and then the rest of the weight cut Friday morning to be at the weigh-in for 9.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and again, it was I cut a bit of weight, a good chunk of weight, and then we made weight at 9, and then it's just you're trying to rehydrate as fast as you can, while also doing whatever little media things and stuff. And then we have to go for the ceremonial weigh-in, which is at like 4 or 6 p.m. or something at the whatever the arena is down there now. They just changed the name. But,
the Scotiabank Center, is that what it is now?
Yeah, and then it's back to bed, try and get some sleep before the fight day. So it was pretty jam packed.
It's a whirlwind. It's a whirlwind, and I mean, listen, you're used to up here. That's not that's the busiest day up here is the Santa Claus parade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I couldn't even look at my phone because I was getting hundreds of texts and hundreds of Facebook messages, Instagram messages, Twitter messages, And I mean, it was all super supportive, but it was overwhelming because at first I was like, I want to answer everybody because everybody's supporting me and stuff, but then you get, a couple hundred people asking you for tickets, and a couple people, they're like, oh, I watched this fight, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then it's...
You got some boys up here that are like your crew, though? They're like your main, like, entourage that you roll with?
Yeah.
How pumped were those fucking guys?
Yeah, they were, well, and you know what, they understood, too, because they're big UFC fans and stuff, so, like, he's probably going through a crazy amount of stuff right now.
They just kind of hung back a bit.
Back,
I bet you they were partying their asses off in Toronto, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're just you're trying to lose weight, and those guys are just getting hammered down there. That would be a good time for them, I'm sure. They must be super proud. That's high. That's wicked. And so you go down there, your first fight, you're going up against this guy, and you're doing pretty good. You're popping him a few times.
Yeah, it was going really well.
And the crowd's on your side. You're in Canada, and he goes down. And you call him back up, juicing the crowd a little bit. Tapping into your WrestleMania mode.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, I read an interview with you about that, but I want to ask you about. So you felt like your adrenaline kind of like you didn't have control of it there, like, or it was like you kind of ran out of gas, or like shortly after that. Is that what happened?
So basically, I think I was running off of adrenaline for those kind of 3 days because I didn't sleep much, and obviously I didn't eat much because I was trying to make weight and stuff. So I think it was basically I was just running off adrenaline for 3 days there, and then got in the ring again. Felt good, was moving good. I was fast. I was hitting hard. Again, I hurt him to the body, landed a lot of headshots. I think I hurt him to the head, and then I kind of knocked him down there a little bit, and then he didn't want to get back up. He wanted me to follow him to the ground.
But he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu trained guy, so that's maybe where he's more comfortable on the ground too.
I mean, definitely with the way the stand-up was going for him, I think he was ready to test the waters on the ground. And I'm very competent on the ground. I've trained a lot of jiu-jitsu and wrestling. But the stand-up was going so well for me, I thought, I'll just keep it standing. No sense in going into his wheelhouse.
Of course. Especially when he wants you there.
Yeah.
Like, keep him uncomfortable. That's ring generalship. You're controlling the fight. And you know what? Because you just knocked his ass down, him calling you to the ground, he doesn't get to fucking do that. That's how I would think in a fight, too. So, exactly. I mean, I understand exactly where your head was at in that move. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, again, and it's kind of just the way the cookie crumbled, really, in a fight. Yeah. Like, ultimately, you probably would do that 9 times out of 10 again if you're in that same situation, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
just because of how, your instincts as a fighter. Mm-hmm. And I think it is an interesting thing to talk about, is just like, that's almost the difference, too, between, like, really, adrenaline is the being able to control that is such an important part of fighting that separates guys like you from average dudes on the street. You get into a bar fight, they're only fighting on adrenaline. They can't manage that. That you're constantly managing that, and that's why you've been so successful, is because you can manage that. So I think that's like an interesting thing, just an interesting side topic, just because you see every at any bar fight, those guys, that's all they're fighting on. But that's why you can fight for a long period of time, is because you have control of that. So even in a split second, if you don't have control of that adrenaline for I guess because you've been running on it for 3 days, that you don't that's the thing you're not prepared for.
No.
Now this time going in, you have proper training for long for this fight. The one coming up, you've known about this for much longer. It's not that you didn't know about, you kind of had an idea before, but now you have like a proper camp, proper time. You know what to expect going into Ottawa. It's probably not going to be as crazy as Toronto just because of the cities, but you can prepare for that. You're not going to be in this whirlwind. You've experienced it, so next time around might be a little bit easier to manage that, I think.
Yeah, and like that was something I never experienced before. I don't get too nervous. I'm pretty good at controlling everything that way. But it was, I think it was when I knocked him down and it kind of everything set in and I got comfortable.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm meant to be here. I'm gonna knock this guy out. And once my body kind of relaxed,
Yeah.
then it stopped.
It wasn't your
adrenaline.
mind; it was your body that almost.
Yeah. And then once that stopped, then like everything was just hollow. I could barely lift my arms up. I'm like, whoa, what happened? I just, at the moment, I thought, wow, I just got extremely tired. But it happened like in a split second out of nowhere. I felt like 110%. I was beating him up, and then I dropped down to like 10%. I was like, holy smokes, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I thought I was just tired. But yeah, I think just my body, everything was running on adrenaline, and then my body got comfortable. So it's like, oh, we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of that fight or flight. My body
Yep.
assumed, I was safe, so it stopped the adrenaline. And then there was just kind of there's no second wind to that.
And how much longer was left in the fight at that time? Like if you were to go to the whole distance in that, how much time was left?
There probably would have been like 12 minutes left,
Shit.
I think.
Like that's a long time to be feeling gassed out, right? Like,
Yeah.
So like that's like, it seems like an eternity because it's just, anyone that's been in like a street fight or a hockey fight, or those fights they don't last that long. You know
No.
what I mean? So, and you're gassed. I know all you fucking drunks are gassed. So, so to sit there and know oh shit, I'm getting tired and I still got 12 minutes to go. And, your mind is, I got to make those 12 minutes. It's not, I want to lose, like there's no quit there.
No.
That's got to be, I got to get to the corner, get to make this round, and get like refocused. Right, that's all you're thinking about. You go into a survival mode, and this guy's a pretty good fighter. So you're in the UFC. You're fighting at the top competition. So that's an interesting situation to be in, I think.
Yeah, and for me it was just like once he got up and we kept exchanging. Then he was able to get a takedown again, I think, because I had slowed down so much. I had stuffed a lot of his takedowns, but once he got the takedown, then it was just kind of like, well, I was pretty confident he wasn't going to be able to submit me.
Yeah.
Again, he's submitted a lot of UFC guys and stuff, and he's a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, but I'm very confident in my submission defense. So it was more about trying to not take too much damage from punches and elbows, and kind of ride out the round. And then have that 1 minute break in between rounds, and hopefully catch that second win. Because again, I thought I was just tired, so I thought, I'll catch my second win again, just like a run or something. I'll catch my second win, and then I'll come back out strong again. But unfortunately, with adrenaline dump, the adrenaline just never came back.
Well, but I think even with losing that fight there, you were still in an advantageous position because you put on a good fight. So it's the entertainment factor, and the fact with UFC coming back into Canada that quick, you took a fight on last minute notice. They're gonna go, let's give him some time now because you showed to them and to yourself that you belong there. So that's
This episode is brought to you by Absolute Nature CBD, premium 100% natural CBD oil and CBD oil products. Absolute Nature CBD is organic. There is no shit in there. No GMOs, preservatives, additives, any of that stuff. And it's made right here in the good old US of A. If you're already using a CBD or a CBD oil product, then check out Absolute. You've had the rest. Now it's time for the best. They give a big discount for veterans and people with long-term disability, but for you, the Fight Stories listener, you get a 20% discount by pumping in the code Goon Squad. Just go to www.absolutenaturecbd.com and order your product today.
So when you started fighting, what age did you start fighting? What was, were you you're in Huntsville. It's a pretty tough town, really. There's a lot of scraps. My wife's a teacher in this town. So there's a lot of punk ass kids in Huntsville.
Yeah.
So it's a scrappy little town. Did you start on the playground, or was it just one of those things where you just liked the competition that you saw on, TV or whatever? UFC was just kind of in its infancy when you were born, I guess.
Yeah.
It would have been, you're born in 1991.
Yep.
So yeah, it's early UFC's just kind of starting out when you're a kid. Did you watch it when you were a kid?
No, so I watched Rocky and stuff when I was a kid, and then so I wanted to be a boxer, and so I always worked out a little bit, basically from when I saw that, I would do push-ups and stuff and sit-ups, and I always worked out. And then, at school, I was always kind of one of the stronger guys. I was always super shy and quiet and stuff, but I was always always pretty strong. So I had been in like one or two fights in school, and like in public school, and not for hating anybody or not getting along. It was just, hey, that guy's. They'd say, hey, Kyle, you're pretty strong, and this guy's pretty strong. You guys should fight. And then I'm like, I don't want to say no, but so
just a couple yappy guys kind of set up the fight, and then the two big guys go at it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it wasn't until I turned 14 and I got into high school, and then I was in like a drama class, and like, oh, what do you like, and what do you do, blah blah blah, and because it was like you getting to know each other, grade 9 and stuff, drama. So I had said I liked boxing, and I think it got misinterpreted as I was a boxer.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, I should just go out and do it. Just go find a boxing gym finally. And I was 14, so I looked around in the phone book, and the only thing I could find was Muskoka Kickboxing, which is right on kind of Main Street, Bracebridge there.
Yep.
And
they're still doing it. You're still doing stuff with them. That's great.
Yeah, I still train with them when I'm in town. So now they did kickboxing and jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu is kind of the groundwork. So I started doing that. And it wasn't long after I started there, the first season of The Ultimate Fighter came out, and that was my first kind of experience with the UFC and stuff. So I started watching that, and I was like, well, that's basically what I'm doing now. I'm doing the stand up with the kickboxing and stuff, and I'm doing the groundwork with the jiu-jitsu. So maybe I'll give this a shot, and it's worked out so far.
That's awesome, and I think it's cool that for you to start when you start with Muskoka Kickboxing, you just go in there thinking it's going to be a boxing or or kickboxing or whatever, and to see that they had jiu-jitsu as well. The fact that they had that covered back then was really cool, because that gives you the leg up going into this. If you had you may have just stayed in the one lane, but because of that, you have the well-rounded repertoire in your game that you can step into a UFC eventually, which is very cool. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask. I was going to say, at what point do you decide I need to start training in this other stuff? Well, it was already there, which is very cool, and that's a big advantage going in. One thing I noticed from watching some of your fights is just the confidence in which you pursue your opponent. Like you're going in at you're a guy who likes to finish.
Yeah.
Like if your record, you got you finished like with knockouts or like ended them with punches like 4 times, and then submissions 4 other times. So that's a well-rounded game right there.
Yeah.
And that's someone that wants to like end it. It's you've gone to the judges, but you don't like that. Obviously, no one likes that. But I mean, I'm sure there's some guys that want to just hold on for.
Yeah, some guys like to play the game and play it safe and stuff, and kind of ride it out and take little damage. I found that when I fought Jonathan Brookins, who was the Ultimate Fighter winner, and a super experienced guy, fought all over the world. And as soon as I was able to hit him hard a couple times in the first round, he kind of switched gears, and he went from
didn't want to be in the entertaining fight, more just
kind of survive and see if I can eke out a victory. If not, at least I'm not going to take a bunch of damage. I'm going to get a paycheck.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I thought was interesting with GSP is he could be that guy if he wanted to be, but he was actually pretty offensive too. Like he was almost like a mathematical equation that guys could not solve. He was a very tough Rubik's Cube. But one of my favorite fights with him was the Koscheck fight. He beat him with jabs. Yeah, like that was death by 1,000 cuts. It's just
exactly.
But it was hard to watch. Like, it's just one after another. He just kept popping. And Koscheck's a great fighter, so it was like to see a guy like that who he can play that defensive game too, But would you say he's one of your main influences at GSP? Obviously, as Canadian.
Yeah, so, definitely my favorite fighter.
Because he could do it both. I think, and I think that's what you have is really good. And obviously, styles are going to make fights as well. So it's cool that you have that well-rounded balance where you can handle a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter, or you can handle a stand-up boxer. And I think that's going to be very important going forward for you. I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely getting into the UFC now, where everybody's
everyone's doing everything.
Yeah, they're doing everything, and there is still the odd guy you'll get like Damian Maia, where they're kind of a specialist in one aspect. So obviously for me, being being able to do everything, I can take them into another aspect that they're not so specialized in. But I'm at the point now where I think I can compete with just about anyone in the UFC, even at their strengths.
What's the toughest strength to compete against? Wrestling? Someone who's really good at wrestling?
Yeah, wrestling, because wrestlers, and my jiu-jitsu style was always more of a wrestling style. That's why I've transferred so well to MMA. Some jiu-jitsu guys are a little more laid back and they're not so aggressive and stuff, and it doesn't transfer well to MMA because there's punches and different things. But yeah, wrestlers, especially like American wrestlers going through like high school and stuff, it's not even necessarily just the skill aspect of wrestling, but it's the conditioning, it's the workout, it's the mindset that they instill.
They don't stop shooting. No. It's just it's a constant barrage, and they wear people down.
Yeah, and like their work ethic gets pretty insane. Again, just from like the high school and the college, like workouts and routines that they have, and then they compete so much throughout the year. So I think it's more so the wrestling mentality that's the most challenging to compete against. But I think I have that same mentality. I just didn't grow up in an area that allowed wrestling. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, that's cool. So that's really cool. And I guess like you're in Huntsville and you start training this stuff. People around high school, they start hearing that you're training this stuff. Anyone looking take a poke at you?
So I never ran into too many, again, like people that angrily wanted to fight, but there was definitely a lot of people that wanted to test
waters
themselves, and so we would get the big Walmart style boxing gloves, and we'd go up to the track or something.
Yeah,
and we'd have
do it all with boxing with the
we
gloves.
would just box. Yeah,
that's good. I think that's interesting. How I think from like my generation, I'm about 12 years older than you. My group of people, we didn't have, I don't know, there wasn't as many laneways to get into like the professional side of it, like to try to, not professional, but there'd be boxing or whatever, and then people would there'd be more street fights. I think people would be scrapping like that. But now there's like these avenues, I think, for kids to go and like channel that aggression and channel that. That curiosity for fighting and testing each other. It's much more with the popularity of UFC and MMA. It's certainly taken away a lot of the street stuff, I think. And there's more opportunity for those kids to go that way. And I think that's really cool too, because I mean, we were fucking idiots back then.
yeah. And even when I was in high school, there was some street fights, but when if me and somebody would go and put the boxing gloves on at the soccer field or something, then you would get two guys that really didn't like each other,
and they would go.
That maybe would have had a normal street fight. Well, now they're putting on 14-ounce boxing gloves. It's a lot safer, and we've got a big crowd around. There's set rules. If somebody gets knocked down, we stop. It's a lot more controlled and a lot safer than kind of not letting them do anything, because then it builds up, and then somebody. Then they go fight bare knuckle, or somebody jumps somebody from behind, or it kind of turns into that scenario. Whereas, this gave them an outlet to, and I mean, 99% of people, even in some street fights, after the fight, like, oh, you got me, it was a good go, you're a tough guy, and they kind of, they bury the hatchet. But if they don't have an avenue to do that, it's tensions build, and I think it makes it a lot worse.
Of course, and then I think the other thing is people who are against MMA or UFC, they don't realize that this is now a legitimate path, that it's more on the radar for kids to see. You know what I mean? Like it just because of the popularity, it's become way less, bar brawler get into it. It's guys get into it. It's a discipline. It's a sport. They get into it at a young age. Kids are, a lot more kids are doing MMA or, martial arts, all that. And it's something that they can shoot for, that's legitimately sanctioned and properly, properly regulated. Whereas before you didn't have that outlet. And, there was boxing and karate and all that. And now it's it's much more on the radar for people to actually train for, so it's not as people that want to demonize the sport. I think they're totally missing the mark there, because it's absolutely the safest way to channel those type of things. We're still have that primal urge to fight and be able to, handle ourselves and protect ourselves and have, have that self-defense, mechanism. And I think it's important. I think everyone should know basic self-defense and basic combat. I think it should be trained to our kids in a proper way and regulated properly. I think that's important. So people that want to demonize the sport are missing the mark completely.
Yeah, and there's great role models too, like George St. Pierre, who it doesn't really matter what kind of light you put him in.
So classy.
I think he's a great person and a polite. He's friendly to everyone. Respects everyone. So I think role models like GSP. Hopefully, I can be a role model like that someday. I think the UFC and mixed martial arts are starting to get a lot of everyone I meet is a great sportsman too. Like there's great sportsmanship in the UFC. So I've seen some football and some basketball, and like they're not good sportsmen at all.
I'd be horrible, man. I'd be riding around with a limo, whipping beers out.
Yeah.
I'd be Ric Flair.
There we go. Yeah, but so I think just the people don't understand the sport. I think they believe that, we're trying to kill each other and we hate each other and, we're trying to, permanently injure each other. It's not my goal going into the cage to cripple someone.
No, you want to finish the fight, you want to win, but it's all done, with like a spirit of competition.
Yeah,
which is important.
Exactly. And after, I'll help out my opponent, and we go in the back, we hang out, we talk, and there's no malevolence.
Do you find I don't know, like what kind of promos and stuff you were doing before, like the UFC? Do you do like video promos before? Like, was there ever anything where there was trash talk that went too far for you, or or have you gone in on someone pretty good?
There's been some trash talk, mainly over social media.
Okay.
And it would, I've had a lot of other fighters trash talk me.
You seem just so even keeled. Like it's
so I never really bit on any of it. Even past opponents that I had beaten, they come back every now and then and they're like, oh, I want a rematch and blah, blah, blah. But there's been one or two opponents that I've got into it with on social media a little bit, and one was, again, it was more of we're trying to build the fight and build the hype. So it was
nothing real personal, but you're just trying to make, get some juice going, get it interesting.
Yeah, and then another one was we were supposed to fight, and then he backed out, and then another opportunity came up, so I started talking on Facebook just to kind of get him to bite and come and sign the contract and fight me, and went back and forth a little bit like that. But it's just a little bit of extra energy that I don't enjoy any of it. So
what I'm trying to say is I'm a real good trash talker. If you ever need a Jimmy the Mouth of the South Heart in your corner with a megaphone, you just give me a call, buddy. I got you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
That's wicked. And so the fight, I promote it, but it's going to be, this is coming out after, but yeah, it's coming up next week. How many scraps do you think there's going to be in the Moose Delaney's parking lot?
Oh, hopefully there's none.
They might be swimming, right? Is it flooded right now?
It's flooded right now. So I was talking to the owner, Dan, and
bring your Sea-Doos.
Yeah, there we go. So he was saying hopefully they'll be open. If the flooding recedes in time, they'll be able to have it open and everyone to be there, and hopefully everybody will be rooting for me, so nobody will be fighting each other. But and it'd be great because Moose Delaney's has supported me for the last 8 or 9 years. They've sponsored me and supported me, and any fight I have that's whether it can be streamed or televised, they always have it on there. So it's that's awesome. It's a great little community.
See, if for the listeners right now where we live, there's like a major like flood alert. Like it's been like they had to bring the military into Bracebridge where I live to help with these floods, and so it's a crazy time right now where we are. I mean, fortunately, up on the high ground right now, but yeah. Hopefully the none of these local businesses get hurt too bad, or hopefully they can get some assistance and stuff. So it's I haven't been down there. I've been in my golden palace, like Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
But oh man, you see it on the news, and it's tough, man. So this town could use a big win next week, buddy.
Yeah,
You got 'em.
well, that's the plan.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on, and I really appreciate you coming and doing this. Guys, check him out. It's Kyle the Monster Nelson. If you want to tell him your Instagram handles or Twitter, whatever they can follow you, hit him up. What's your just give him your handles there?
Yeah, so on Facebook, it's just Kyle the Monster Nelson. Twitter, it's __monster. And Instagram is themonster705_UFC.
Right on, guys. Thanks so much for listening. And one more time, thank you to Kyle Nelson. And you can check us out at Fight Stories Pod on Instagram and at Fight Stories Podcast on Twitter. I think those are the handles.
Yeah.
This is Tyler Morrison. And check us out on patreon.com/Fight Stories for bonus footage, bonus content. Be a part of it. You can get t-shirts, the works, man. Thanks so much, guys. That's been Fight Stories.